My son called me on a Tuesday afternoon. March 14th, 2023. I remember the date because I wrote it on my calendar afterward. I didn't know why at the time. I just needed to mark it. He said, "Dad, Sarah feels uncomfortable around you. We need some space." I asked what I'd done. He said, "Nothing specific. She just gets a vibe." That was it. No examples, no conversation. No chance to defend myself. Just a vibe. A feeling. That was enough to erase 38 years of being his father. I said nothing. I hung up. Then I made one call. If this story resonates with you and you believe in the power of quiet truth over loud accusations, consider subscribing to Hidden Truth Revenge. The best revenge stories start with a single hard decision. This was mine. I sat in my living room for a long time after that call. The house was quiet. It's always quiet since my wife passed. I looked at the framed photos on the mantel. Mark's graduation, our fishing trip to Lake Michigan, his wedding day. Sarah smiled in that photo. I remember thinking she had a nice smile. I remember thinking she was good for my son. I started rewinding. Not the phone call. The years before it. Little things. Small comments. Nothing I'd thought twice about at the time. A year ago, at a family dinner, Sarah mentioned the books at Hartley Landscaping. I asked a casual question about their accounting software. She laughed and said, "James, you're retired. Let the professionals handle it." Then she smiled that nice smile. Mark laughed along. I let it go. 6 months before that, I offered to help with their tax preparation. Sarah said, "We've got it under control. Besides, you always find problems. It stresses Mark out." I remember Mark nodding, agreeing with her. I remember thinking I was being helpful. I was a retired accountant. I had 40 years of experience. I could spot a discrepancy from across the room. That was my skill. That was my gift to them. She didn't want my gift. A few months before the phone call, I showed up to a Sunday dinner 15 minutes early. Sarah was in the kitchen, on her phone. When she saw me, she closed the browser quickly. Too quickly. She said, "James, you're early." Mark's still in the shower. Then she put her phone face down on the counter. I didn't think anything of it. People get startled. People close browsers. It meant nothing. Except it meant everything. After the phone call, I sat in my chair and thought about all of it. The closed browser, the tax comment, the laugh about the software. The way Sarah always seemed to volunteer to handle the books. Always offered to manage the finances. Always said, "Let me take care of it, honey. You focus on the work." Mark was a landscaper. He planted trees and laid sod and built retaining walls. He was good at his job. He was not good at reading a balance sheet. I was. That was the problem. I didn't call Mark back. I didn't text him. I didn't email Sarah asking what I'd done wrong. I knew that game. I'd seen it 100 times in my career. Someone accuses you of something vague. You defend yourself. You apologize for things you didn't do. You beg for specifics. They give you nothing. You chase a shadow. You exhaust yourself. I wasn't going to chase a shadow. I sat in my chair until the sun went down. Then I went to my computer. I opened a browser. I typed, "Private Investigator, Chicago Suburbs." I found Diane Reeves on the third page of results. Her website was simple. No flashy graphics. No promises of miracles. Just a phone number and a line that read, "I find what's hidden. I report what I find." I called the next morning. She answered on the second ring. "My name is James Hartley," I said. "My daughter-in-law just had me banned from my son's life. She says I make her uncomfortable. I want to know why." Diane was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What do you think she's hiding?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." "Send me what you have," she said. "Names, business details, anything you remember. I'll start digging." I hung up. I opened a blank email. I typed everything I could remember. The business name, Hartley Landscaping. The address, Sarah's full name, Mark's full name, the bank they used, the software she mentioned, the dates, the comments, the closed browser. I hit send. Then I waited. 2 weeks passed. I heard nothing from Mark. No apology, no explanation, no invitation to dinner. Just silence. I spent my days walking around the neighborhood, watering plants I didn't care about, watching the news I didn't follow. I was a ghost in my own life. On May 1st, 2023, Diane called. "I've got something," she said. "Not the full picture yet, but enough to know you were right to call." I met her at a coffee shop in Naperville. She was shorter than I expected, 50s. Grey hair pulled back, no-nonsense eyes. She slid a folder across the table. Sarah Mitchell opened a personal bank account at Midwest Bank 2 years ago, she said. Regular deposits from a business account, matching Hartley Landscaping. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork. I opened the folder. Bank statements, transactions, dates, amounts. Smaller first, $500. Then $800. Then $1,200. Over 2 years, it added up. How much? I asked. Preliminary numbers suggest around 30,000, she said. Maybe more. I need more access to confirm the full scope. But the pattern is clear. She's been skimming from the business. I closed the folder. I looked at the coffee in front of me. I didn't drink it. There's more, Diane said. I spoke to a former employee, Tom Wilkes. He worked at Hartley Landscaping for 18 months. He quit last November. He says Sarah pressured him to fudge inventory numbers. Told him it was standard practice. He didn't feel right about it. He left. Did he report it? He didn't know who to report it to. Mark was never in the office. Sarah ran everything. Tom said if he went to Mark, Sarah would just deny it. So he walked away. I nodded. I understood that feeling. The feeling of knowing something was wrong but having no way to prove it. The feeling of being dismissed as paranoid. As difficult, as someone who just makes people uncomfortable. Diane looked at me. This is preliminary, she said. I need time to get the full forensic picture. But James, here's what I can tell you right now. She paused. Your daughter-in-law didn't want you around because you're an accountant. She's been stealing from your son, and you were the one person who could have caught her. She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim folder. Not the thick one I'd expected, just a few pages. She slid them across the table. Sarah Mitchell opened a personal checking account at Midwest Bank on May 3, 2021, Diane said. That's 23 months ago, almost 2 years. I opened the folder. The first page was a account opening form. Sarah's signature, her social security number. Her maiden name listed as the account holder. Mitchell, not Hartley, keep going, Diane said. I turned the page. Bank statements. The first deposit was $500. It came from Hartley Landscaping's business account. The second deposit, 2 weeks later, was $800. The third was $1,200. The pattern continued. Every 2 weeks. Religious. How much total? I asked. Roughly $30,000 over 2 years, Diane said. I'm still tracing the earlier deposits. The account existed before she started funneling money. She opened it with $2,000 from some other source. But the regular deposits from Hartley Landscaping started in June 2021 and never stopped. I did the math in my head. $30,000 over 2 years was more than $1,000 a month. Mark's business was doing well, but not that well. Not well enough to absorb that kind of loss without noticing. Your son never saw the books? Diane asked. He trusted her, I said. She ran the office. He ran the cruise. He'd come home dirty and tired and she'd hand him a tablet with the numbers. He glanced at them. He didn't audit them. Diane nodded. She'd seen this before. I could tell by the way she didn't say, I told you so. The deposit stopped in November of last year, she said. For about 6 weeks, then they started again in January. Smaller amounts. $800, then $600. Like she was being careful. November, I said. That's when a former employee quit. Tom Wilkes. You know him? I met him once. Mark said he was a good worker. Sarah said he was difficult. He left suddenly. Diane pulled another paper from her folder. I found Tom. He lives in Aurora now, works for a different landscaping company. I called him yesterday. I leaned forward. What did he say? He said Sarah was always in the office after hours. She'd leave late, after everyone else. He said she asked him once to sign off on inventory that wasn't there. He refused. She told him he was making things complicated. What kind of inventory? Equipment. A new riding mower that never showed up. Fertilizer that was ordered but never delivered. She told Tom to mark it as received. He said no. She stopped speaking to him after that. He quit 3 weeks later. I stared at the bank statements. The dates matched. November was when Tom left. December was quiet. January, the deposits resumed. She slowed down because she lost her inside help, I said. Tom wouldn't fudge numbers for her, so she had to be more careful. She waited until the dust settled, then started again. That's my read, Diane said. I thought about Mark, his brown eyes lighting up when he came through the door after a long day. His dirty boots on the welcome mat, his generous heart. He never saw it. He never wanted to see it. What else? I asked. Diane hesitated. I'm still building the full picture. But there's a pattern here, James. Sarah didn't need Tom to fudge inventory for the deposits. That was something else. The deposits on the bank account are straight transfers out of the business. She had access. She used it. So the inventory angle was something separate. I think so. I think she was building a reserve. Maybe planning to leave. Maybe just buying time. I don't know her endgame yet. But you will. Diane smiled. I will. I closed the folder. $30,000. 2 years of stealing from my son. And Sarah's discomfort with me was the wall she built to keep me on the other side. Can you find out where the money went? I asked. I already started, Diane said. She paid down a credit card with one of the bigger deposits. I need subpoenas for the rest, but I can get there. Do it. Diane packed her papers back into the bag. She stood up. I stayed seated. James, she said. One thing. I looked up. Your daughter-in-law isn't stupid. She hid this for 2 years. She isolated your son from the one person who could spot it. That's not random. That's calculated. I nodded. I knew. I need more time, she said. A few weeks. I'll have the full report. Take whatever time you need. Diane handed me a folder. This is just the beginning, she said. There's more. I took it. I didn't open it. I just held it in my hands and watched her leave the coffee shop. The door swung shut. The bell above it chimed. I sat there for a long time. The folder sat on the table between my hands. $30,000, 23 months. One false accusation of discomfort, and a son who believed her instead of me. I opened my wallet and pulled out a business card. Diane Reeves, private investigator. I had made the right call. The only call. I stood up, tucked the folder under my arm, and walked out into the May sunshine. Spring in Naperville. The trees were blooming. The air smelled fresh. Everything looked normal. That was the most disturbing part of all. I drove home with the folder on the passenger seat. I didn't open it. I wanted to wait. I wanted to be somewhere private where I could read every word without interruption. My house felt empty when I walked in. It always did now. I set the folder on the kitchen table and poured myself a glass of water. Then I sat down and opened it. The first page was a cover sheet from Diane's office. Case number, date, client name. Then a summary paragraph. I read it 3 times before I understood what it was saying. 28 months, $87,000. I had been lowballing it. $30,000 was just the beginning. Diane had gone deeper. She had pulled every bank statement from Hartley Landscaping going back 3 years. She had matched every deposit to Sarah's personal account. She had traced the money. I turned the page. The breakdown was meticulous. Diane had organized it by month. April 2021, first deposit, $2,000, cash. May 2021, nothing. June 2021, $500. July 2021, $800. August 2021, $1,200. The amounts grew over time. By the end of the first year, Sarah was pulling out $3,000 a month. I did the math in my head. I couldn't help it. 40 years of accounting had wired my brain that way. $3,000 a month times 12 months was $36,000. That was just the first year. The second year was worse. She had gotten bolder. $4,000, $5,000. 1 month she took $7,000. I checked the date. November 2022. That was the month Tom Wilkes quit. She must have known he was leaving. She squeezed out one last big payment before the deposit stopped. I flipped to the next section. Diane had titled it Expenditure Analysis. She had tracked where the money went. Item 1, 2023, Honda CR-V. Purchase price, $32,000. The dealership was in Naperville. Sarah had paid cash. No financing, no loan, just a check from her personal account. I remembered Mark mentioning the new car. He had been proud. Sarah got a great deal, he had said. Only $32,000, practically stole it. He had no idea how right he was. Item 2, 2 trips to Cancun. Total cost, $12,000, January and March of 2022. Sarah had told Mark they were paid for with credit card points. She had even posted pictures on social media. I had seen them: beach shots, cocktail glasses, smiling faces. Item 3. Personal credit card payments. Total: $43,000. Department stores, restaurants, a spa membership, online shopping. Month after month of small charges that added up to a fortune. I closed the folder. $43,000 on credit cards, $32,000 on a car, $12,000 on vacations. That was $87,000, every dollar stolen from my son's business. Every dollar taken from Hartley Landscaping. Every dollar that should have been paying his employees, buying new equipment, building his future. And she had framed me to keep it hidden. I leaned back in my chair. The kitchen clock ticked. 7:48 in the evening. I had been reading for 2 hours. I hadn't noticed Diane had included a final page. It was her recommendation. She had written it in plain English, not legal jargon. Mr. Hartley, the evidence is clear and the case is strong. I recommend you inform your son immediately. The pattern of theft is ongoing. Every week, you wait, more money disappears. She was right. I knew she was right, but I couldn't just call Mark. I couldn't do what she suggested. Not yet. He had chosen her over me. He had believed her lie. He had cut me out of his life because she said she felt uncomfortable. I needed to make him see. I needed to make him understand what he had done. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a piece of paper. I wrote 3 words. This is why she wanted me gone. I folded the paper and slipped it into the folder. Then I found a large manila envelope. I addressed it to Mark at Hartley Landscaping. I wrote his name and the address in block letters. No return address. I drove to the post office on Washington Street. The lobby was empty. No line. I dropped the envelope into the outgoing mail slot at exactly 8:17 in the evening. The metal flap clicked shut. I stood there for a moment. The envelope was gone. There was no taking it back. The wheels were in motion. I drove home. I poured myself another glass of water. I sat in the dark living room and looked at the framed photos on the mantel. My wife, Mark as a child, our family at Thanksgiving. I had no idea how this would end, but I knew one thing. My son was about to learn the truth, and Sarah was about to learn that a retired accountant with nothing but time is the most dangerous enemy a liar can have. The phone would ring. It was only a matter of time. I had nothing left to do but wait. I put the report in an envelope, wrote Mark's address, and dropped it in the mail. Then I waited. The next 2 days were the longest of my life. I kept my phone close. I checked it every few minutes. Nothing. Wednesday passed. Thursday. I watched the clock like I was back in an office, counting down to retirement. Only this time I wasn't waiting for 5 o'clock. I was waiting for a bomb to go off. I didn't know when Mark checked the mail at his business. I didn't know if he opened envelopes personally or if Sarah sorted through them first. That thought kept me up Wednesday night. What if she saw it before he did? What if the report ended up in her hands? But Thursday evening, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Mark, I answered. I said his name. That was all. There was silence on the other end. Then a sound I hadn't heard since my wife's funeral. My son was crying. Dad, he said, his voice cracked. Dad, what did you send me? I took a slow breath. I said the truth. He started talking fast. The words tumbled out. He'd opened the envelope Thursday afternoon. He read the report on his desk. Then he read it again. Then he drove home. He confronted her in the kitchen. She laughed at first. She said it was lies, forged documents, someone trying to destroy her. She asked him how he got the report. He said it came in the mail. She demanded to see it. He handed it to her. She read it. And her face changed. Mark told me the rest in fragments between sobs. She sat down at the kitchen table. She put her head in her hands. She said, I didn't mean for it to get this far. He said, what does that mean, Sarah? She told him everything. The first deposit in April 2021. The small amounts at first. $500, $800. She told herself it was a loan. She'd pay it back. Then it became $1,200. Then $2,000. Then $5,000. She bought the Honda CR-V with cash in November 2002. She told Mark she'd won a bonus from a client. He hadn't questioned it. He never questioned anything. The Cancun trips? She told him they were work junkets paid by suppliers. He believed her. Of course he believed her. She was his wife. $50,000. That was her best guess. She'd lost track. Mark said, 50,000? I said nothing about the real number. Not yet. She told him why she did it. She said she felt trapped. She said she wanted her own money, her own safety net. She said she was scared he'd find out she wasn't good with money. What? So she took it, and then she told him the part I needed to hear. She said she knew I'd figure it out. I was an accountant. I had 40 years of experience. I would look at the books during Thanksgiving dinner and know something was wrong. So she created a reason to keep me away. She told Mark I made her uncomfortable. She said I looked at her wrong. She said I asked too many questions. She built a wall made of lies, and my son walked right through the gate she opened. Mark said, Dad, she admitted it. She admitted she lied about you. I let that sit for a moment. I said, I know, son. He asked me how long I'd known. I told him I hired a private investigator in May. I told him about Diane. I told him about Tom Wilkes and the falsified inventory. I told him about the account at Midwest Bank, the meeting at the coffee shop, the report I read in my living room until 7:48 p.m. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, What do I do? I could hear Sarah in the background crying, saying his name, begging him to come back to the table. He said, I have to go, but Dad, I need you. I need your help, please. When I spoke, my voice was the same one I used in 30 years of audits. Calm, measured. I said, You want my help, Mark? He said, Yes, please, I don't know what to do. I said, Then you need to understand something. You chose her lie over my character. You believed her when she said I made her uncomfortable. You cut me out of your life for 6 months. Do you understand what that cost me? He started crying again. He said, I'm so sorry, Dad. I said, I will help you. I will help you save your business. I will help you recover what she stole. But Mark, this isn't something we fix overnight. He said, Dad, I'm so sorry. Please, I need your help. I took a long breath. I said, I'll help you, Mark. But we need to do this right. The next 4 days were a blur of phone calls and paperwork. I contacted the Naperville Police Department and filed a formal complaint. They put me in touch with a detective named Kowalski, who specialized in financial crimes. I also called a forensic accountant I knew from my years in the business, a man named Richard Hale. He agreed to prepare a full forensic report for the police. On Monday, I called Mark. I said, I think we need to have a family meeting. He said, okay. He sounded broken, hollowed out. I asked for his laptop. I said I'd handle the logistics. Emily arrived at my house Tuesday morning, June 12th. She was the only family member on my side. She said, Uncle James, I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I said, I'm sorry you had to see it. We set up a video call with Sarah's parents. They lived in Arizona, haven't been told anything. I kept it clinical. The meeting started at 7 o'clock in the evening. Mark came in through the back door, Sarah trailing behind him. She looked pale, thinner. She avoided eye contact. Mark sat next to me at the kitchen table. Emily sat on my other side. I opened my laptop. I had the full report from Diane's office and the preliminary findings from Richard Hale. Sarah sat down across from me. She didn't say a word. I started the video call. Sarah's mother appeared on the screen, then her father. Her father said, James, nice to see you again. I said I wish it were under better circumstances. I spoke first. I said, thank you all for coming. I have something important to share. Sarah started shaking her head. She said, James, please, not like this. I said, Sarah, there's no easy way to do this. I turned the laptop so the camera could show everyone at the table. On the screen, Sarah's parents were smiling, still unaware. I said, Mark's business has been losing money for 2 years. He didn't know why. I said, the reason is Sarah has been embezzling from Hartley Landscaping. I paused. The silence was absolute. Sarah's father leaned closer to the camera. He said, excuse me. I said, I hired a private investigator. Her name is Diane Reeves. The report shows Sarah stole $87,000 over 28 months. Sarah's mother put her hand over her mouth. Her father just stared. I said, Sarah used the money to buy a $32,000 car, take 2 vacations to Cancun worth $12,000, and pay $43,000 in credit card bills. I turned to Sarah. I said, is any of that incorrect? She didn't answer. Mark stood up. He said, I already know. She admitted it. Sarah's mother started crying. She said, Sarah, please tell me this isn't true. Sarah looked down at the table. She said nothing. I said, I've already contacted the police. Detective Kowalski is handling the case. Richard Hale, a forensic accountant, is preparing a full report for the prosecution. Sarah's father said, Prosecution? James, you can't be serious. I said, I am completely serious. She stole from my son. She lied to destroy my relationship with him. She framed me. I said she thought I was the only one who had noticed the missing money. She was right, her father said. There has to be another way. I said there isn't. Mark cleared his throat. He said, I'm filing for divorce. Sarah looked up at him. She said, Mark, no. He said, yes, I can't stay married to someone who stole from me and lied to all of us. Sarah started crying. She said, I just wanted to start my own business. I was tired of the landscaping life. I didn't want to be trapped. I said nothing. Sarah's father said, we are ashamed of you. Her mother was still crying. I closed the laptop. I said, I think we're done here. The room went quiet. Sarah's mother looked at the camera with tears streaming down her face. Sarah just stared at me. I said, the police will be in touch. 2 days after the family meeting, I drove to the Naperville Police Department. Detective Kowalski had called that morning. He said they had enough to make an arrest. I met him in the lobby at 9 o'clock. He was a compact man in his 50s with grey hair and tired eyes. He shook my hand and said, we picked her up an hour ago. She's being processed now. I nodded. I said, what are the charges? He said, felony theft. Over $50,000 in Illinois carries a potential sentence of up to 5 years. I said nothing. I thought of the folder Diane had given me. I thought of the $87,000. 5 years felt light, but it was something. I called Mark from the parking lot. He answered on the second ring. His voice was flat. He said, Dad. I said, they arrested her this morning. There was a long pause. He said, I know. They called me for a statement. I waited. He said, she's in the county jail right now. I said, yes. He said, I don't know what to feel. I said, that's normal. He said, can you come over? I need help with the business accounts. The police took all the records. I said, I'll be there in 30 minutes. I arrived at 11. Mark's house looked the same. The same flower pots Sarah had planted. The same welcome mat. But the energy was wrong. Mark opened the door looking like he hadn't slept. He was wearing the same shirt from 2 days ago. He said, thanks for coming. I walked inside. The kitchen table was covered with papers. Bank statements, invoices, a laptop. I sat down. He sat across from me. He said, I don't know where to start. I said, we start with what we know. We get a forensic accountant. We file a civil suit. He said, a civil suit? I said, she has assets. A car, savings. We can recover the money through the courts. He rubbed his face. He said, I still can't believe she did this. I said nothing. I called Richard Hale the next morning. He was the forensic accountant I had contacted for the family meeting. I explained we needed a civil suit. He said he would draft the complaint. I contacted a lawyer named Patricia Molina. She specialized in business fraud. She agreed to represent Mark for a reduced rate. The legal wheels started turning. Sarah's assets were frozen within a week. The 2023 Honda CR-V was seized. Her personal bank account was emptied and the funds held in trust. I watched the numbers. $32,000 for the car, $12,000 for the vacations, $43,000 in credit card payments. It added up. Every dollar was accounted for. The civil suit was filed on July 3rd. Sarah's lawyer tried to argue that the money was a loan, that she intended to pay it back. Patricia Molina produced the bank records. The secret account, the falsified inventory logs from Tom Wilkes, the credit card statements showing charges in Cancun. The argument collapsed. On September the 1st, the judge ordered Sarah to liquidate her assets. The car was sold at auction. Her jewelry was sold. Her personal savings account was emptied. Every cent went back to Hartley Landscaping. $87,000 returned in full. But the money coming back didn't fix anything. Mark's business had suffered. Clients had left. Trust had been broken. Employees had heard rumors. I helped him rebuild the accounts. I showed him how to set up new checks and balances, how to require 2 signatures for any withdrawal over $500. He listened, he learned, but there was a wall between us. One evening in late September, we were sitting in his living room. The civil suit was finished. The money was back. Sarah was awaiting trial. Mark said, Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't see it. I should have seen it. I looked at him. He had bags under his eyes. He looked older than 38. I said, "You should have listened to me." He said, "I know." I said, "She created a story about me." She said, "I made her uncomfortable." You believed her. You chose her lie over my character. He didn't answer. I said, "Do you understand how long I've been your father?" 40 years. And she was in your life for 6. She told a lie. You believed it. He started crying. He said, "I was trying to keep my marriage together." I said, "You kept your marriage, but you lost me." He looked at me, his voice cracked. "Can we ever be the same?" I looked at the photo of his mother on the mantel. Her face, the way she smiled. I thought about what she would have said, but she wasn't here, and I couldn't pretend. I said, "I don't know, son, I really don't." He nodded. He didn't argue, he just sat there. And we sat together in the quiet of a house that used to be full of family. I drove home that night feeling hollow. Part of me was satisfied. Sarah was facing justice. The money was back. Mark's business would survive. But there was no victory lap. There was no celebration. There was only a father and a son who had been broken by a woman's lie. And the question of whether we could ever be mended. I didn't have the answer. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Sarah was sentenced on September 20th. I went to the courthouse, not to watch her suffer. To make sure the job was finished. She stood in front of the judge in a grey suit. No jewelry, no makeup. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her lawyer argued for probation, cited her clean record. Her role as a mother. The judge listened. Then he read the sentence. 18 months in the Illinois Department of Corrections. Sarah didn't cry, she just closed her eyes. Her parents sat 2 rows behind me. They didn't look at me. They didn't look at each other. They just stared at their daughter like she was a stranger. I left before they brought her out. Mark wasn't there. I didn't ask why. Some things don't need words. The civil suit resolved in November. Patricia Molina handled it efficiently. Sarah's assets were liquidated. The Honda CR-V went to auction. Her jewelry was sold. Her personal accounts were emptied. Every dollar found its way back to Hartley Landscaping. Mark's accountants called me to confirm the deposit. $87,000, every cent accounted for. But money doesn't fix everything. Mark's business survived. Barely. He lost 3 commercial contracts during the chaos. Clients heard rumors and left. His employees gossiped. Trust takes years to build and seconds to shatter. He implemented my suggestion for new checks and balances. 2 signatures required on any withdrawal over $500. Monthly audits. A new bookkeeper who wasn't his wife. He called me once in October to tell me he was hiring a new office manager. We talked for 8 minutes. The conversation was polite, professional, distant. I didn't push. I couldn't. On December 1st, I drove to my lawyer's office. Harold Morrison. He's handled my affairs for 20 years. I told him I wanted to update my will. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't ask why. I left everything to Emily. My house, my savings, my mother's china, every photo album, every book, every dollar of my $340,000 in retirement funds. Emily was the only one who believed me, the only one who didn't need proof. She called me every week during the 6 months Mark refused to speak to me. She asked how I was doing. She told me I was right to investigate. She never doubted. Harold printed the new documents. I signed them at 4 in the afternoon. He notarized them. We shook hands. He said he was sorry I had to go through this. I said I wasn't. Christmas came, December 25th. I didn't expect a call from Mark. I didn't get one. He sent a text at noon, said he was spending the day with Emily and her family. Said he hoped I was doing well. I texted back. 1 word, same. I spent the day alone, made coffee. Watched the snow fall on the backyard. The same backyard where Mark learned to throw a football. The same yard where his mother planted tulips that came back every spring. I didn't feel sorry for myself. I felt something quieter. Acceptance. Sarah Mitchell stole $87,000 from her husband. She stole his trust. She stole 18 months of my relationship with my son. She stole the ease we once had. The laughter. The unguarded moments. But she didn't steal everything. Mark still has a business. Emily is still family. The truth is known. The courts documented it. Sarah's parents know what their daughter did. The neighbors know. The community knows. And I know that I did the right thing. I could have let it go. I could have accepted the estrangement and died alone, wondering what I did wrong. But I didn't. I investigated. I found the truth. I exposed it. That doesn't make me a hero. It makes me a father who refused to let his son be destroyed by a lie. The winds came in February, late winter light through the kitchen window. I sat at my table with a cup of coffee and looked at the calendar. 6 months since the phone call. 6 months since everything changed. I still don't know if Mark and I will ever be the same. I hope we will, but I'm not counting on it. And that's okay. I've lived long enough to know that some wounds leave scars. You can't force healing, you can only wait. And keep living, and find peace in the small things. The quiet morning, the coffee, the snow. I think about my late wife sometimes, wonder what she would say. She would probably tell me I did the right thing. She would probably tell me I'm stubborn. She would probably tell me to call Mark. But I won't push. He knows where I am. And if he never calls, if the distance becomes permanent, I'll accept that too. Because Sarah is in prison, the money is back. Mark's business is stable. And I'm sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and nothing to prove. That's enough. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more.